In this video, we'll be talking about the differences between WordPress.com and WordPress.org. When somebody talks about WordPress, they're referring to the underlying software that runs a website, but it could also refer to WordPress.com or just the software you can download from WordPress.org. And as we'll see, there's quite a bit of differences between the two, so let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, so this is a landing page for WordPress.com, and the process of creating a WordPress site is going to be heavily guided and assisted. So to create a blog or website here, we could click on Get Started, and then it's going to guide us through a series of steps. So we could do things like choosing what our website's about. It'll give us the option to choose a theme, pick a domain name, which is generally a subdomain of WordPress.com, although you have the ability to upgrade to use your own custom domain. And then once you finish setting up your account, you can come to WordPress.com and log in. And then it's going to give you a portal or an all-in-one way to kind of interact not only with your WordPress site, but also other WordPress sites as well. So you can see after I logged in, it took me to my reader, which is a feed of other WordPress sites. So it's going to encourage you to engage in the WordPress blogging community and website community by doing things like commenting, sharing comments, reading other people's articles. And then it's also going to give you kind of a holistic way to manage and customize your WordPress site. So if I click on my site here, it's going to take me to a list of statistics regarding my blog, such as who's viewing it, how many likes and comments I'm getting, and things of that nature. You could also come to Customize, which is going to take you to the customizer or an interface for making basic customizations. And it's important to note here that if you want to make a really custom or in-depth site, then you're not going to really have the ability to do that because we can't really do things like edit the template files or the code or anything of that nature. Although if I exit out of this, we can come down to the plans and we can upgrade to do things like have more powerful customization, a custom domain name. So you have some limited ability to do so, but you have to pay to get that more advanced plan. If we compare this to WordPress.org, this is more of a website dedicated to the WordPress community. So there's a lot of information here, like what themes are out there, what plugins you can use, getting support through the forums and documentation, and also to create a WordPress site through WordPress.org, you can come here and just download the software, and it's going to give you a zip file, and then it's up to you to come in here and set this up. So you can see that there are some drastic differences here. This one is more of a DIY on your own solution, but there are pros and cons to using each method. For WordPress.com, some of the benefits include it's easy to set up. So we saw that we didn't have to do things like set up a hosting account. We don't have to install WordPress or do anything with the web server. It's also straightforward and easy to customize through its interface. It's 100% free unless you use one of the paid upgrades like we saw. So you do have to pay for upgrades like advanced customization, which will give you basic access to your website styles or the website's CSS, and use things like a custom domain or a domain that isn't a .wordpress.com URL. You can't use plugins on WordPress.com, which is kind of a bummer because plugins are an easy way to add a lot of functionality and features that don't come with WordPress by default. And you're also limited to the number of themes that are pre-chosen for you on WordPress.com. WordPress.org, or the self-hosted version of WordPress, some of the pros include that it's 100% free to download. You can use any plugin you want, also any theme you want, and because you're given the files and you're setting that up yourself, you would complete control over those files and unlimited potential for customization of the code. So the only downside of that is you also have to know how to code in order to customize those files. Some of the cons of using the self-hosted version include you have to pay for hosting, and you also have to set that up. You have to install WordPress yourself. And you also have an increased amount of responsibility because you're going to be managing your own web server and also be in charge of maintaining your website. Or, on the other hand, you could pay someone to do that for you. So, with all those differences and all those pros and cons, you might be wondering which is better for you. And while there are pros and cons to both, neither is really better than the other. Both have the underlying power of the WordPress platform.